edition of Sports Talk. It's Saturday, May 28th. I'm Daniel Blake. Thank you so much for joining me. Sports Talk is brought to you by Jamaica Customs Agency, country above self. Remember, there are several ways that you can listen to the show. You can download the Love 101 FM app in the Google Play or Apple Store, and you can listen live there. You can go into your internet browser and go to love101.org. That is org or org, whichever you want to say it. And you can listen live there. Or if you want, you can also go on YouTube and Facebook and you will see me live there. And if you are listening on your radio, and you might hear me sound a little muffled, you might hear some static or whatever, it might mean that you might want to change the FM band. So remember, you have 101.1, 0.3, 0.5, 0.7, and 0.9, depending on where you are in Jamaica. So find the right one and listen to me as clearly as possible. And something that I don't think I highlight enough is that you can listen to the show again. Or if you missed it completely or you want to tell somebody about it and you say, boy, Daniel had a good show today, or he had a bad show today, you need to hear that. You can do that through the app or on YouTube and Facebook. It is there and will be there forever unless them either delete the video or them delete the internet. So YouTube, Facebook, Love 101 FM's page, and you'll be able to not only watch the show live, but you can re-watch the entire show. If you want to watch just a specific segment, you can do that. All right. So today is a very football-based show because football season is sort of coming to an end, even though football never ends. But all the European leagues overseas are coming to an end. The Champions League final is today at 2 o'clock, so right after the show ends, the Champions League final will commence. But a lot of the top leagues have ended. We'll focus mainly on the English Premier League, which most of us watch and enjoy. And I'll be joined by 3 local experts, Damian Gordon, even though he don't live locally, but he's a Jamaican, so and a very good analyst as well. So we'll talk to him. We'll talk to Rashida Murphy, who is a sports vlogger, and Aiden Alexander, who is a young football analyst as well. So we'll get their thoughts on Manchester City winning the title, Liverpool running it close, the top 4 race between Tottenham and Arsenal, Manchester United's terrible year. Sorry for all the United fans out there. The relegation battle, and also we'll also do a short preview of the Champions League as well. I want to give a special big up, just so I don't forget as well. My brother David, it's his birthday weekend, so happy birthday, bro. I love you so much. He was on the show, is which week? I think it was during the Champs show. He was live doing the Champs quiz as well. And he's also the voice that you hear at the start of the Daniel log. So hi, I'm David Blake, So love you, bro. Hope that you have a great weekend. And who knows, one day you can host a show for me. Because anyways, let's not go there. So we're going to go into our Daniel log shortly, but since we're talking about football, I just want to update you on the other leagues in case you don't know. So let's talk about the top league. So as I mentioned, in England, Manchester City were champions. In Spain, Real Madrid were champions, getting ahead of the likes of Barcelona, Atletico Madrid. Them did wrap up the league from about April, so that was pretty early. In Germany, it was a pretty similar case with Bayern Munich. They were crowned the champions in Germany. In France, PSG, Paris Saint-Germain, winning the title there. And in Italy, which went down to the final day, AC Milan winning their first title in 11 years, pipping their rivals Inter Milan to the title. So those are your major champions across Europe. And yeah, football is sort of going on a break. That's the club football. So you're still going to have the likes of, Major League Soccer, which is American leagues, and you still have South American leagues and some other leagues happening around the world that will be going on. But those are the main leagues and those are the main champions. And the Nations League games start very soon. Jamaica will be in action as early as next week, I believe. And games will be played at the National Stadium. You can go on the JFF's official page to see how you can get tickets to watch the boys there. They lost 6-0 to Catalonia, by the way. Catalonia is like a, should I say, province in Spain? But yeah, so a lot of the players who play for Spain or in contention to play for Spain played for Catalonia. It was an unofficial friendly, so I don't think it will cost us any points on the FIFA rankings or anything like that. And a lot of our new players based in the UK and other parts of Europe got a chance to play. But yeah, 6-0 still pretty hot. Yeah. All right. So it is time for my monologue for this week, the Daniel-log.
This is David Blake.
This is Hope Blake.
I am Ariel Ron Blake.
I'm here to tell you right now.
It's time for the Daniel-log.
The Daniel-log.
The Daniel-log.
I love it. Presented by no one.
So since we're on the topic of football, one of the major things that happened over the last week was that Kylian Mbappe, French striker, one of the best players in the world, decided to stay at PSG, the French champions, turning down Real Madrid, the Spanish champions, deciding to stay longer in France. Now, just to give you a little context, Mbappe last summer reportedly wanted to go to Real Madrid. Real Madrid made a bid of close to, I think, 200 million euros. That's right, 200 million euros. Even though Mbappe was going to be a free agent this summer. So that shows how badly Real Madrid wanted him. But PSG said, no, we're not letting him leave. We are going to try to convince him to stay. And remember, they had brought in the likes of Donnarumma, one of the best goalkeepers in the world, Lionel Messi, who I don't need to describe for you, Sergio Ramos, all these players trying to build a solid project so that PSG would finally win the Champions League. PSG didn't win the Champions League, actually got knocked out by Real Madrid in the round of 16, and people felt it was now going to be a foregone conclusion that Mbappe would join Real Madrid. But after weeks and weeks of speculation, he decided to stay. Real Madrid fans very upset. A lot of the football world shocked as well. A lot of the narrative around it, though, is what I'm essentially going to talk about, is that people saying that Mbappe is making a huge mistake by staying in France because people don't respect the French league. It's not that competitive, and they don't see PSG winning the Champions League. They also think that, going to Real Madrid would have elevated his status and he would have become a bigger legend. No, just a few things. Kylian Mbappe right now is, I believe, 23. So he has time. He has a lot of time. If he wants to join Real Madrid in the future, he can. He has a lot of time. 23, if I was 23, that would be regarded as old. Simply because my football days done long time. But Kylian Mbappe hasn't even hit his prime as yet. So he's going to get better, and when he joins, that's if he joins Real Madrid in the future, I decide to join somebody else, he's going to be on a different level, right? Also, people saying criticizing him for staying. These are the same people, by the way, who says, there's no more loyalty in football. Everybody wants to move to this club and this big club and, make life easier for themselves. But can you imagine Kylian Mbappe decides to stay? Well, he can get enough money still to stay. Over hundreds and millions of dollars. Him going to be making, I think, how much is it? £500,000 a week or something like that. Anyways, that's not the point. The point is that whether he was incentivized or not, him decide to stay, which is loyalty, correct? So do we now have rules to loyalty? If you're working at a job and an next job wants you and the next job say, so you're currently being paid $100. The next job said they're going to give you $200 and you thinking about joining them and your current job said, no, we're going to actually give you $500 now. Would you not stay? So loyalty should be commended by Mbappe. He is French, playing in the French capital, is amazing. And can you imagine if PSG were to win the Champions League while Mbappe is there? It's going to be one of the biggest stories ever. And his status, even though he already won the World Cup, several French leagues, and several individual awards, if PSG win the Champions League with Mbappe there, Mbappe is going to be regarded as one of the greatest players of all time. Knowing that PSG would have gone up against the likes of Manchester City, Liverpool, Real, Barcelona are coming back, Juventus, Bayern Munich, the list goes on. If PSG, from a league that people don't really credit or respect, wins the Champions League, Mbappe's status is set. So Mbappe is doing what's best for him. He's still young. He has a lot of time, and his loyalty should be credited. So that was my Daniel log for this week. And we now go into a break. And when we come back, we'll be joined by Damian Gordon, Rashida Murphy, and Aiden Alexander as we discuss the 2021-2022 English Premier League season. Stay with us.
Many of our brothers and sisters lose hope when diagnosed with HIV. Some lose their will to continue being a part of society. Others are despaired by the challenges of keeping up with their treatment. We understand. But remember, people with HIV live normal and progressive lives every day. You can too if you get back on track with your HIV treatment. Live for you, live for someone, live for something.
Get back on track, get back to life.
A message from the Ministry of Health and Wellness.
God's Way 2, Carlton's Redemption. 5 shows only, June 3 to 5 at the Little Theatre in Kingston.
Let us focus on God's work. That is important.
So your marriage is not important?
For me, but one hand can't clap.
With Delia Harris, Sherry Elise, Stephen Ray Johnson, and Ainsley White.
My marriage is none of your business.
We're not going like your business neither.
Tickets $2,000 at the Little Theatre box office or at 876-323-0751. It's inspiring, it's uplifting, it's God's Way 2. Don't miss it.
How does saving help? Saving helps in avoiding debt, reducing financial stress, leaving a financial legacy, and providing you with a greater sense of financial freedom. It will undoubtedly help in cases of rainy days and boost your overall financial health. This financial literacy tip was brought to you by Bank of Jamaica, building an inclusive economy.
Come back to Sports Talk here on Love 101. Thank you so much for joining, if you're just joining or staying with us. So, the English Premier League season is done. Manchester City crowned the champions back-to-back years. Pep Guardiola winning his 4th English Premier League title, just edging Liverpool on the final day. It was an extremely tense final day. Liverpool thought they were in the driver's seat because Manchester City were actually down 2-0 to Aston Villa, managed by a former Liverpool player, Steven Gerrard, and Philippe Coutinho, who left Liverpool a few years ago, getting one of those goals. But Manchester City, in Manchester City fashion, came back 1-3-2, held on. So Liverpool's win over Wolves didn't matter because, you know, Manchester City only needed the win to be crowned champions. Tottenham getting that last top four spot ahead of Arsenal, and Burnley going down along with Watford and Leeds to the championship. So Damon Gordon, football analyst, Aiden Alexander, football analyst as well, and Rashida Murphy, sports blogger. We spoke about everything regarding the English Premier League. But first, we start with Rashida, who gave her thoughts on that final day of the EPL season.
I think going into it, we all expected, you know, the normal 5-0 thrashing of a Manchester side on the final day. We thought, can Liverpool pull it off? And for a minute, I thought the scriptwriters, you know, had this alternative ending for us when I saw the 2-0 Aston Villa. And at the time, Liverpool were still 1-1. I was like, there's no way this is happening. We're at the 50th minute and City still is not back in the game. And I think, a doubt comes over your mind that this is not for them this year. I'm sorry, but you lost it in a bad fashion. But when those 3 goals in 5 minutes, I was like, this is what I wanted. You know, we judged them in the Champions League to say that their mentality is weak and they don't know how to fight and they don't know how to get out of it. They really turned up on the final leg of the day. And I was like, that's what it takes to be champions. You have to learn to pull from impossible situations.
Yeah, Damian, at the end of January, we thought that Manchester City were going to cruise, but Liverpool just found a way to keep winning. I think they went on this 12 or 13 game win streak, and City were dropping points here and there. But would you give credit to Manchester City for not allowing it to slip? Because we know that especially in these situations, they could have folded under pressure. But should we give them more credit for holding their nerve, especially on that final day?
You have to. You can't help but give them credit, because it took some amount of mental fortitude to know what was happening around them, because whether you like it or not, I think news must have filtered through to them as to what was happening in that Liverpool-Wolves game, and at some point it must have played with the nerves. So I would give Pep Guardiola and his charges some amount of credit. And of course, when Liverpool were going on that run, in between all that, Manchester City were having some tough days. They drew, I think, with Southampton, and of course being knocked out of the Champions League in the way they did by Real Madrid must have really put some needles in their collective nerve. And so that, to me, kind of knocked them off their rhythm just a little bit. But having said that, I think that, on the final day, nobody do drama more than Manchester City. Nobody does it better than they do. And again, they pulled through. I think Sergio Aguero must have been watching and feeling pleased, because somehow Manchester City managed to pull it off. And I think Kevin De Bruyne in particular, enough credit can't go to that young man. And I think we hear people say, yes, he's good, but he's better than good. And I think with him, Manchester City, they're just a cut above the rest. And even though the drama was there as for the neutrals, I think that Manchester City in the end deserved to be champions.
Yeah, Aiden, Liverpool just missing out. We hear a lot in the media about how great this Liverpool team is. How much do you actually rate this Liverpool team pushing Manchester City to the wire like that?
This Liverpool team, they're incredible. They're really, really amazing. This is probably, many, even Liverpool fans would say this is probably one of their greatest teams ever assembled. And their success has been severely stunted by Manchester City itself. Like, to get 97 points and not win the league is unthinkable. Even, the past 4 or 5 seasons, Liverpool has been an absolute thorn in Manchester City's side, and Manchester City more so in theirs, because this Liverpool team really should have 2, 3, 4 maybe even 5 more Premier League titles. But Manchester City has just been absolutely amazing. They've been, absolutely miles ahead of the rest of the competition, bar Liverpool. And those two teams, with Pep and Guardiola at the wheel, they don't look like they're going anywhere anytime soon.
I actually want to get to that, Rashid and Damien. Pep and Klopp seem to be far above the rest. We'll get to Tuchel and Arteta and Conte shortly, but what they have done for football in England has been absolutely superb. Where do you currently rank their rivalry compared to the Sir Alex and Wenger, Sir Alex and Mourinho, Mourinho and Wenger? Where do you rank their rivalry in terms of English football?
If I may go first here, I think this is one of the great rivalries. The Mourinho and Fergie. I think I would give Jose Mourinho a lot of credit for the way he was able to maneuver his charges coming into Chelsea when Manchester United were absolutely dominant, and the way he went about upsetting the cards and creating Chelsea as a new force in English football. I think that was fantastic. But this Pep Guardiola Jurgen Klopp rivalry, it is friendly, and it's based purely on football. The quality that these two teams and these two managers have been able to put on that pitch season in, season out is rather refreshing. And I think from Manchester City's standpoint, Pep Guardiola, he knows he's very comfortable in his job. He doesn't have to worry as to whether he's going to be there next season or the season after. They're begging him to stay. The same thing with Jurgen Klopp. He's very secured in his job, so he knows that he has the wriggle room to make mistakes, to adjust the squad, to bring in who he wants. And you look at how he has gone about shopping in the transfer market. It has been very astute. They have not gone and spent above their means, but they've just bought the right pieces of the puzzle to fit in every time. And every time you think that they're going to be falling back, Jurgen Klopp and his backroom staff go and they find Diaz. They brought in Jota. They brought in players who are just coming into this group, and they're players who are willing to sit on the bench. And when called upon, they come in and they do a job. And of course, Divock Origi, not many will write his name in the annals of great football players, but Liverpool fans, he's a legend, and rightly so. So the way they've gone about shopping, I think that is one of the things that the hallmark of a fantastic manager. And these two, certainly, their football speaks volume.
Yeah, Rashida?
Okay, so I'm a bit on the fence, and can I take this moment to just promote my YouTube channel? That's my latest video. And I talked about how we tend to congratulate Liverpool and Jurgen Klopp for almost or nearly or putting the pressure. They're still losers at the end of the day. And when we put them into conversations of great rivalries, as Mourinho would say, I'm not one of the butlers. So the thing is, I think this rivalry has been fun to watch. It's been exciting. It's been one for the books, but it's nowhere near competition. To compete, you have to win, because you don't just compete to be a part of the process. And that doesn't take the fact from how great they are as managers, because I respect Klopp and Guardiola, but Guardiola sits at a higher level above him. He's always beaten him in the league, and he's always taken what people say he's coming for. Every season we say that's going to be a 2-title race, and it's going to be Liverpool, Manchester City, but it's always City above and beyond, away from Liverpool. And I think we tend to soften our hearts for Klopp because he's had it harder than Pep, and he doesn't have this gigantic, war chest to dig into and to win these Premier League titles. So in terms of the rivalry, it's not the greatest we've seen, in my opinion. It's just the more exciting and the more modernized versions of those rivalries. But in this one, it's always Cities to win and lose. Liverpool is just there to compete.
Well, I mean, if I may jump in just to rebut a little bit there, Rashida, you did say quite rightly that Liverpool don't have the war chest like Manchester City. And you remember when Mourinho came to England and upset the apple cart? It's because Roman Abramovich gave him an open checkbook and say, go, make yourself a
fight, basically. It's an unfair fight to put him against somebody like Guardiola because he has the unlimited access. But my thing is, even last season, Manchester United could have won it because Ole came second and he was some points off the top. everybody slated him and said it's not a success, it's a position. You know what I'm saying? Past seasons before, when he comes second, it's not. And I get the 1 point off the title, but when you check the statistics, those who are emerging to it, you can see Liverpool have never been first place in the Premier League. They were nowhere near winning it ever. So I think, this rivalry that we try to beat up, it's a friendship. It's more like, you're my friend, and I'm going to put the pressure on you to go and get it for yourself. So I don't take it from me that he's not a good manager, or Liverpool haven't done it. They've had a great project. The project has been amazing over the years, but it's always, even the Champions League final they lost, it's always, the goalkeeper wasn't good enough, the midfield wasn't good enough. There's always excuses, and other persons don't get the excuses, because when Mourinho didn't win the league again after his third spell, it was always, you're a loser, you didn't make it didn't happen. So that's where I'm coming from.
Yeah.
Well, in my personal opinion, if we're going to be ranking, the great rivalries in terms of manager of the Premier League, we look at the Klopp and Pep. We look at Sir Alex Ferguson and Wenger. We look at Sir Alex Ferguson and Mourinho, or whoever you want to say it is. Rashida said it's not a fair fight between Pep and Klopp, given the difference in resources that are available. The same could be said for the other rivalries. Sir Alex Ferguson broke the British transfer record multiple times. Sir Alex Ferguson is by far and away the manager with the most Premier League titles in history. It's 13. Pep is the closest manager to him currently, and he's still miles off of him. So, if we're going to be, comparing Alex Ferguson versus Wenger to Pep versus Klopp, but say that, Klopp hasn't had success, the same could be said for, the other rivalries. The other rivalries are heavily one-sided as well. Manchester United was the only club in the country that anyone really wanted to play for many, many years. I feel like it was more lopsided towards Manchester United back then than it is to even City now.
And some would argue they even had referees playing for them. Just ask Howard Webb,
Some like to say, Pep is just throwing money at every little problem he has, and blah blah. But Sir Alex Ferguson wasn't on a shoestring budget either.
But even in today's football world, last season, nobody talks about that. Chelsea spends on strikers more than anybody else's. I think it's sometimes unfair where we put Guardiola in this bracket of, you spend $1 billion you have to achieve. What about everybody else? Doesn't Arsenal have to deliver top 4 and a Europa League and titles? Doesn't Chelsea have to, so it's kind of, I think the hypocrisy in football is, it's who your owner is that gets you in that position, because you have to answer for the money and answer for all of this spending and all of the decisions being made.
Yeah, we have to break it there. But when we come back, we'll be talking more English Premier League with Damian, Aiden, and Rashida. And we'll also preview the Champions League final. So stay with us here on Love 101.
Importers. Shipments requiring you to pay customs duties and taxes are cleared on a customs goods declaration, known as an IM4 or IMS4. Ask your clearing agent to provide your customs declaration, customs assessment notice, and customs receipt once duties and taxes are paid. Where your clearing agent may not be able to provide the IM4 or IMS4, request your customs goods declaration registration number or C number, which can be used to verify your payments. Importers, request your IM4, IMS4, or C number. It is your right. For details, email the Jamaica Customs Agency at public.relations@jca.gov.jm. Jamaica Customs, keeping our customers in focus.
What would I do without you? You help me carry on, you help me stay strong. Whenever I'm down and can get through, you lift me up again and going all day long. Precious moments we share with you, everything's so right. It's clear, nothing else can compare to the taste that you bring to life. Mom, together full of life.
Keep fully connected with Flow Fiber Fast Internet at home and on the road with LTE data and calls for a fast, reliable experience anywhere. Over 500 communities have been upgraded since 2020, making more of Jamaica Flow Fiber Fast. And with Yacht and Road, get Flow Fiber Faster Yacht and LTE Road for as low as $3,999 plus GCT. Visit discoverflow.co to get connected on Jamaica's largest network. Conditions apply.
To sports talk here on the family station, Love 101. Damian Gordon, Aiden Alexander, and Rashida Murphy, my guests for this week. We're still talking the English Premier League season, so let's get back to that discussion. One team that we thought would be part of the title race was Chelsea, but close to that December-January period, things started to crumble a bit. The ownership issue, the COVID issues, the injury issues. Damon, as a Chelsea fan, Rashida, as a Chelsea fan, I know that it has been a complicated season, but when you look on all of those issues, how satisfied are you with the season?
Personally, I wasn't thrilled. I felt a bit of deja vu towards the end of the season. If Rashida will remember, last year we happened to squeeze into the top four only because Leicester City lost their game on the final day of the season. When had they won that game, Chelsea would have ended fifth. And it's almost as if Chelsea tried to bottle it again. Luckily, we had a case where Tottenham were able to fend off Arsenal for us with that 3-0 beating, and then subsequently they stumbled against Newcastle. But I think that Chelsea, it was a season played out the way I expected it, because I did say it would have been Manchester City from Liverpool from Chelsea. What I was disappointed with is the points gap between us and the top two. I expected Chelsea to be a little bit more competitive going in towards the final end of the season. And I mean, it's a disappointment that we bought a player for nearly £100 million, and he was watching like a spectator for most of the season, unfortunately. And I think that in and of itself affected Chelsea. The off-field issues was also a distraction. And so this is where I have to really give kudos to Thomas Tuchel and the Chelsea staff, in that they kept it together. And even in difficult times when the ship was rocking, they kept the sail going, they kept it up, and they still battled through. And so having ended the season in the top four comfortably in the end, I have to give them credit. But in the end, overall, I was disappointed that we never closed that gap on Liverpool and Manchester City to show that next year, for certain, we should be able to challenge. I don't know how we close another almost 20-point gap in one season.
Well, the way I look at it is, Chelsea sat top of the league, in the first half of the season. I'm pretty sure in November, Chelsea sat top of the league. Chelsea's worst period this season came in December. They couldn't buy a win in December. Their home record was awful. They kept losing, they kept dropping points, they kept getting, silly draws, losing points in terrible ways. This was before all of these sanctions that took place. We know the Russia-Ukraine situation is a horrible situation. Their owner is a Russian oligarch. Well, was a Russian oligarch. He was forced into a sale of the club. But their worst period this season came before any of those sanctions or issues were prevalent. Were a problem.
But those issues came after, because at the time our goal dependency was on the wing backs, and at that time Ben Chilwell was on the height of his game, and he goes out in an ACL injury. Marcus Alonso is slower than even me that doesn't play football. That was where it catapulted. After the Juventus home game, I think that's where everything went wrong. We saw Reece come out as well with an injury. We saw so many key players out. And for me, two things for me. One, this season, I wasn't looking for a Premier League title because this is Chelsea and we failed to be a part of the race. But 3 seasons running now, so I was never looking towards that. The Champions League didn't fool me, didn't get me thinking. I was more towards the cups, and that's where my disappointment came from in losing those. And secondly, the same issues that I have with Liverpool, with everybody saying, it was a great season and all these issues, I'm not going to clap for Chelsea for sticking it through, because at the end of the day, a lot of decisions that went against us could be blamed to the manager, and I don't want him fired. I love him to death and all of that. But he had to take accountability for the team he selected, the things he requested. We saw other teams in January go out and get their missing pieces of the puzzle. A striker was never Chelsea's problem, and I think that was where everything went wrong. And when the season started to dwindle and we saw players dropping like fly, I was like, whoa, we really wasted a summer chasing one player when there were other positions that needed help. Our midfielders, at times, there's only one midfielder playing for like 8 games straight. So it was just a chaos of a season, and I'm not going to say, oh, well, it was bad, but it's disappointing to know that, we weren't challenging, but I wasn't expecting it.
I disagree with one point you said there, where you say a striker has never been Chelsea's problem. I feel like a striker has been Chelsea's issue for many years.
No, this season I was talking instead of that 100 million being our main focus point, because we saw it in the Champions League. Chelsea had missed so many opportunities because we had nobody inside the box, right? But for seasons running, we've always spent, and they come, they flop, and they leave after a season. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about in terms of elevating the team, because I'm sure Tuchel could have a plan to play without a traditional number 9.
But again, let me jump in there, Rashida. This is where I disagree with you, because in the seasons that Chelsea would have done very well is when we had a striker who was able to bully his way and get to at least 20 goals. So you talk about Diego Costa, who was the last formidable force that we had up top, and we won the league with Diego Costa. And again, you touched on some good points in that the absence of Reece James and of course Ben Chilwell. When they went down, you could have seen that the team was short on options, and that's maybe where we could have gone and done better in terms of getting people in the transfer market, and also. Talking about in December when we were struggling, that's also a very good point. It all happened before all of this chaos off the field. However, I still believe that Chelsea should have at least finished closer to the top 2, but getting to 2 finals and losing, I mean, they played pretty well. So I'm not going to say overall it's a disappointing season. I wouldn't go that far.
Let's talk about that top 4 race. At one point, we thought that Arsenal would stun everybody, but in the end, like so many other seasons, they fall short. Should we give Tottenham more credit for coming from where they were, starting with you, Aidan, or should Arsenal get more criticism from essentially giving it away from such a crucial position?
I think both points are true. I think that Tottenham definitely deserves credit. Antonio Conte in particular definitely deserves credit. He's a world-class manager. He brought that Tottenham team from the depths of whatever was going on under Nuno Espirito Santo, and brought them to the Champions League. We saw at the beginning of his tenure, his constant frustration and disappointment, to the media, stating that, even doubting himself, maybe I'm the problem, maybe I'm not good enough, because he just wasn't understanding what was going on with Tottenham. But, at the end of the day, they went on extremely good form. They're the only team in the Premier League to take points off of both Manchester City and Liverpool in both games this season. They didn't lose to either of them. And Antonio Conte really transformed that Tottenham team. But what I will say in regards to, them beating Arsenal to that top 4 position, I think it's indicative of experience. We know this Arsenal team is extremely young. That's one thing. And, aside from that, Arsenal does not have a Harry Kane. They don't have a Heung-min Son. Those are 2 players that are genuinely world-class. Those are 2 players that the case can be made that they are the best in their position in the Premier League. Arsenal doesn't have that kind of player right now. They need that marquee signing. Harry Kane, we know, is a striker. He's the best striker in the Premier League. Despite his slow start to the league, he finished the Premier League 1 goal behind Cristiano Ronaldo, who was Manchester United's player of the season. You can't say he had a bad season. He had a slow start. Heung-min Son, top scorer in the Premier League, tied with Salah. And, those 2 players are 20-goal-a-season players. And they still finished, and, they only got 4th. So this Tottenham team, based on the beginning of their season, you could even say that they underperformed.
Well, and I think, just to jump in there, Aidan, some valid points that you've raised. And I think Antonio Conte coming to Tottenham was an absolute golden catch. I couldn't understand why Manchester United never went in for him. I still can't understand what the board was thinking. Yeah, hi Rashida, welcome back. And so I couldn't understand why the board didn't make a move for Antonio Conte. But the fact is that, you know, Kulusevski and Bentancur's arrival really gave Tottenham Hotspur a little bit more quality in those areas, because if you remember, they were depending heavily on Harry Winks, who really couldn't hit the ball into an ocean if you put him at the edge of it. So they brought in quality. Kulusevski, he really handled the ball well in the final third. He added goals to his game, unlike Lucas Moura, who was full of industry but no real quality in the final third. I think Kulusevski brought something different, and he linked up pretty well with Son and, of course, Harry Kane as well. And you mentioned, Aiden, that Son is a world-class striker. I think he's the most underrated player in global football. The guy is absolutely fantastic. You know, joint top scorer in the Premier League, one of the best leagues in the world, maybe the best, arguably, without a penalty in all of that. I think says something about him. And Antonio Conte came in and he turned around the form of not just Harry Kane, but the entire Tottenham squad. He lit a fire under them, and you could see that every time they stepped on the pitch, they knew they had somebody who was not about to rest on his laurels in that technical area. And I think it was infectious, and it went on. As it relates to Arsenal, the point can be made that they blew it, but of course, this is Arsenal, right? It's almost a playbook that we see time and time again. Still a young squad, and I think I would give Arteta some time to turn it around. A few more marquee signings, and I think Arsenal could be in, like they used to be, a top 4 contender every season.
Well, for me, the top 4 race was apples to oranges, because both teams started out poorly. And the thing with Antonio Conte coming in, he was already set to succeed, because that's the type of manager he is. He's known for rebuilding. The thing is, where you said, Damian, he kept on wondering what went wrong, if he was the problem. And this is where great board and great planning came in play, because he went with a vision of what he wanted in the midfield, and they trusted him, and it worked. For Arsenal, Mikel Arteta is way off of Conte as a coach, because Conte can dig in and find that win as a coach and change his tactics. Arteta doesn't have that. The squad experience, as he said, his front line is very experienced. They have the qualities. Arsenal doesn't have that. Some people would say Arsenal underachieved, but I think that this is all they could have done. There was no higher or lower that they could have got to surprise me, because their season was hope we, exceed to the Champions League. Where Tottenham, there was nothing on the board for Tottenham. But with Antonio Conte coming in, it was, what can he do? And as I said, this is where building comes into play. You don't just go and buy the expensive name that you hear or the youngest player that there is. You go in and what fits, because as Kulusevski comes in, it's like they start winning midfield battles. They start to overpower other teams. He's a workhorse. He's here, he's there, he's everywhere, he's defending, he's scoring. And so it all makes sense in terms of what teams want to achieve, in terms of the manager you have holding it, the team you have behind you, and just, the great planning that's put into the season.
Yeah. Even though we've spoken about it a lot throughout the season, you hear a lot of conversations about Manchester United during the season, but just essentially touching on their appointment of Erik ten Hag. We've seen United go for these quote-unquote world-class managers, and things haven't worked out. Do you think that this might finally be the change, knowing what we know of Ten Hag, what he's done with Ajax? Do you think that there's a genuine chance Manchester United does better next season, or do you think that he's going to have to go through another season where they're going to have to, struggle in the Europa League, have some defeats in the league, finish 5th or 6th, and the cycle continues?
Well, I mean, Manchester United right now is it's almost like you're dealing with an autistic child. You have to be patient with them right now. I think Manchester United, they're in a state where they need to be patient with the manager. The manager needs to be patient with some of the players, because there's going to have to be wholesale changes. Just like when Jurgen Klopp arrived at Liverpool, and he knew that he had time. if Manchester United is not willing to give you Ten Hag the time to go through, recycle through some transfer windows, change out some of the players, because God forbid he's being asked to win the Premier League next season or finish second, then of course the impatience will set in, and that will throw everything into a tailspin. So they have to accept realistically what is the best possibility. Let us get at least to the top 4 next year. Then we can invite in, we can be attractive to some big players, and then we can go from there. Anything else, and this is going to be a short marry as well.
Well, in my opinion, personally, I think that Eric Ten Hag deserves patience, but maybe the players don't deserve patience as much. Those players deserve a manager that can show them that they can't just kick, scream, cry, and vomit and get him out the door. Because that's what they've been doing. Those players know that, my life at this club is going to be longer than any manager that comes in the way. And if I don't like him, all I have to do is not play well, and the results are going to drop, and he's going to be sacked and kicked out of the club. That's exactly what they've been doing. That those Manchester United players have been so criminally just underperforming and so criminally average. There's no way you can have Europe on the line and you go away to Brighton and concede 4. There's no way. There's no way you concede 9 goals to Liverpool over the course of 2 games in this season. No one expected them to win the game, but how do you don't concede 5 at Old Trafford to Liverpool? That's for such an age-old rival. That's embarrassing. Those players are embarrassing. Cristiano Ronaldo and David De Gea are the only 2 players who look like they even care what's going to happen on that football pitch. Those are the only 2 players that look like they have some sense of pride of what's going to happen. They claim that Harry Maguire is a problem. You drop him from the squad and you're still leaking goals. So what's the issue here? The players have just been absolute rubbish. That's the main issue. They brought in Ten Hag. He's coming with, under the condition that he's going to have complete control. He's made his position very clear that he wants, his squad to play a certain way. We know how, his philosophy was at Ajax. And if he can implement that at Manchester United, we've heard they're in for a lot of targets this summer. It's been reported that they're in for a striker, they're in for a midfield, and they're in for a centre back, and they're in for a full back as well. So if Eric Ten Hag is probably going to be spending a lot of money this summer if they're to land all their targets.
All right, so the relegation battle was pretty much decided long before with Watford and Norwich, who a lot of people were expecting, and Burnley on the last day finally going down after years of avoiding the drop. Any surprises that Burnley didn't make it out this year? Did you think that Leeds with Jesse Marsh would make it? Potentially even Everton with Frank Lampard. Were you surprised that Burnley finally made it down?
First hit. So I was a little bit surprised the fact that Everton were drawn into such a scrap to stay up. I mean, the club in and of itself, needs gutted inside out, and I think the effects that we're seeing on the pitch is as a result of what is happening off it. And every day there is, some kind of protest. They're trying to get rid of Ken Wright. But as it relates to Leeds United, I was a little bit surprised that Marsh was able to pull it off on the final day. I thought Burnley, having gone into the final day of the season, would have saved themselves, because the fact that Leeds were playing against Brentford, and I think Brentford, they've shown that they can mix it very well effectively with the big boys. And I thought that they would have made it difficult for Leeds. Having said that, Leeds managed to pull it off, and credit to them. I'm happy to see the back of Burnley, to be honest. They're anti-football. I think they should be playing in some other division, even lower than the Championship. But good riddance, and all the best for next season.
Yeah, Aiden?
Burnley sacked their longtime manager, Sean Dyche. It wasn't looking too good for them with him in charge. They rolled the dice, sacked him to see if they could, bring in a new manager that could save them. It unfortunately didn't pay off. Like you said, I thought they might have just pipped Leeds on the final day, given, the 2 sides that they had to play against. But, we've seen that Newcastle under Eddie Howe is a force to be reckoned with. It was always an uphill battle for Burnley, losing their manager, coming against this Newcastle team that was pushing for a top 10 finish after having been in the relegation fight themselves. Newcastle couldn't buy a win, like I said before, at the start of the season, and completely turned the season around. So, Burnley going down, I wouldn't say it's much of a surprise, but it could have gone either way for them or Leeds. But I didn't expect Everton to go down. I always thought that Everton would get themselves out of it. I thought, there was enough room for them to get a result or two that would swing it, in their favor. So it was between Leeds and Burnley for me for a little bit. And, it just happened to be Burnley.
Any sympathy for Burnley, Rashida?
No, for me, the relegation battle was a bit more intensifying than the Premier League title. For once, I forgot about that there was a Premier League to be won. I was more invested in the relegation, and for quite some time, it was always either Everton or Leeds that were always in the heat of it all. I think for one point, everybody was like, can Frank turn it around? Can Frank get them over the line? Then we saw Leeds got dragged into it later on into the season. We saw Burnley as well going on a horrifying run later on. And so it was always fun to see. I predicted Leeds to go, but no sympathy for Burnley. They caused Chelsea a lot of pain all the while. So it's one leg. But the thing is, when I see those who are relegated and I'm like, praise God, thank you, Jesus, everything. I then go on to the championship and I look at who is coming up. And it's even more headache because the teams that are coming in aren't even more breath, you can breathe and say, well, they're not going to cause problems. Those teams are just as stubborn as the ones that were here before.
Yeah. All right. So let's touch on the Champions League. Liverpool versus Real Madrid. Liverpool, I wouldn't say probably, definitely got the I guess the longer end of the stick with those opponents, and Real Madrid just constantly finding their way out. So a prediction from all three of you, starting with you, Rashida. Who do you think will be the Champions League winners this season?
Real Madrid all the way. I'm Real Madrid because as a Chelsea fan, Liverpool has stolen 2 trophies off of us. I want to see their season end horribly. 2, Real Madrid have that fight in them that can edge them over the line. You can debate that they're not the same type of teams and maybe Liverpool has the better team, but I think Real Madrid to take the trophy.
Are you, Damian?
I have sympathies for Real Madrid. I mean, I'm a fan of them in Spain. I think that they're going to find themselves up against a better team than they did when they played Chelsea. But they've managed to pull some rabbits out of the elephant, if you ask me, sometimes, and it was pretty tough. And sometimes, it's their qualities that shine through in the end, even though they rode their luck. But to have come back against PSG and against Manchester City and against Chelsea from perilous positions, I think this gives them a real fillip going into the final. But I think that if they find themselves in the same position as they did against this Liverpool team, there's no coming back. But a prediction, I expect Liverpool to win a close final.
Aiden?
I'm someone who doesn't like to give predictions personally. I'm a very superstitious kind of guy. As a Barcelona fan myself, I have no sympathies toward Real Madrid. So it is my hope, the lesser of 2 evils to me would be Liverpool winning the final. So it's my hope that, that Liverpool and Jurgen Klopp can get the job done.
Mind you, I mean, just to jump in again, Aiden, I mean, Mohamed Salah picked up an injury and there's a little bit of doubt about him, but I think he plays. And if they're running at full tilt, all the pieces in place, I see Liverpool going on to just edge this one. Only maybe by the odd goal.
May I add, I think everybody puts this thing on Liverpool that they're the unbeatable team and they're the giants this year. We saw it with Chelsea where Chelsea had them over 120 minutes and they were unable to find any solutions way out. We even seen in other league games where even with a Brentford, who obviously went toe-to-toe with them and fought them. So I think if Real Madrid, if Ancelotti does not sit back and wait to raise his eyebrows and actually come with a game plan, I think it can be won. to the athleticism in their midfield. I think they need to start the younger players for once, because that's what has helped them three times this season actually. And also, Benzema is fine away, Vinicius, they're good on that. But it's just the midfield and the backline that would probably have a chance about. But Liverpool can be beaten from me.
Yeah, I mean, we're at this point in the competition where it could go either way. I think both teams are beatable. I've seen this Real Madrid team look poor this season. I've seen them get beaten terribly this season. Liverpool has lost some games as well. They have had their off days as well. So, both teams are beatable. And like I said before, at this stage of the competition, it could go either way. As I said before, it is my hope that Liverpool will win. Being a Barcelona fan myself, it is a lesser of two evils. And I think that you said that you hope the younger players start in the midfield. Ancelotti is not going to change his formula. The formula is not going to change. He trusts that old guard, and that old guard is going to keep playing until the wheels fall off. Even if, they might not play 90 minutes or 120 minutes, but they're going to start.
I think if I would go with Rashida here. I think they need to put one solid little player in there. I think Valverde. If I were Ancelotti, I would take one of the old guys out and I'd put Valverde in there just to rough it up a little bit, because I think that Luka Modric and then Cruz and Casemiro work very well together. But when the game is not very fast, and I think that there's going to be pace coming at them, so I would sacrifice one of those older pair of legs for Valverde in there.
I mean, we've seen
letting the older players run for the 90 minutes could help with a super sub, and Camavinga coming on and completely changing the dominance of the game could also work well, because we've seen it before. They sit back for the entire game. They've looked too defensive at times, and you're like, where's the attacking press? When are they going to come out of their own half for once? And then he comes on, and it's like, let's go all foot forward. And the other team is actually catching their breath because they have no subs left. So I think that could be a pretty good game plan.
Yeah, to go to what Damian had said, we've seen this season where Valverde will play alongside, the old guard trio of midfielders. So maybe we'll see that coming. I think the position that's in dispute the most is the right hand side of attack. We know that Vinicius is going to play. We know Benzema is going to play. Most likely, the old guard trio of the midfield is going to play. So that right hand side of the attack is possibly, if we're looking at a 4-3-3, that is possibly the position in the most dispute. Will Rodrigo start? Will Asensio start? Will Valverde start in that position? And on paper at least, and then in practicality, he'd play as a fourth man in a midfield. We'll see. We'll see how Ancelotti decides to line up come Saturday. It's not very long from now.
Or as Rashida said, you could just raise the eyebrow.
It's worked for him thus far.
Yeah, we're really looking forward to that Champions League final. Thanks again to Damian, Rashida, and Aiden for joining me this week. And thank you for tuning in this week. It means a lot. The Champions League final starts any second now. So if you don't have cable, find yourself at a local restaurant, sports bar, or whatever. If you haven't seen a football match this season, this is the match to watch. All right. And we'll talk about it next week. So thank you again. Remember, Sports Talk was brought to you by Jamaica Customs Agency, country above self. I'm Daniel Blake. Please enjoy your weekend and stay safe.
You've just listened to Sports Talk right there with Daniel Blake. Hope you enjoyed that one. Lots of football was talked about. Yeah, all the leagues and all the things. Yeah. Thank you so much, Daniel. All right, we're going to be continuing with the show.